What's good, YouTube? It's RPU here, and I'm back again with another video. And today we're going to be talking about Corium, truly a blockchain for all. I'm talking DeFi, CBDCs, NFTs, tokenization, cross-border payments, stablecoins, the metaverse, trading, market makers. Corium will be at the core infrastructure of Web3. And the Sologenic community gets core for free. Let's go! Now, regarding the distribution schedule, the 6th Corium airdrop has been distributed and the 7th snapshot has been completed. Guys, we are 1 month away from the launch of the Corium mainnet. Have you been stacking Sologenic to receive the Corium airdrop? Or are you buying Core outright? Let me know in the comments. Now, currently, the Transaction Explorer and the DevNet are now live. Developers are encouraged to build on Corium. Grant applications are open, and with the Transaction Explorer, you can view all blockchain metrics from block number to transaction speed in real time. In addition to that, Corium held its first Twitter space, breaking down the technical white paper and AMA with the team. All this we're going to cover in this video. Let's talk about it. Alright guys, follow Corium on Twitter at Corium Official. One blockchain for all, a 100% community-based project backed by @RealSologenic. $Core, man. Developer grants. Wave 1 are now open. Apply at Corium.com/grants. Corium has over 36,000 followers on Twitter. Follow Reza Bashash on Twitter at Reza Bashash. He is the co-creator and technical lead at RealSologenic and at Corium Official. # go solo, man. Reza has over 25,000 followers on Twitter. Follow Bob Ross on Twitter at BobRossX. He is also the co-founder of Sologenic and Corium. # Solo Nation. Solo to the moon. Bob Ross has over 83,000 followers on Twitter. Follow Mauricio Zoliker on Twitter at Zolkilla. He specializes in blockchain, Web 3.0. He's the Space Lounge host and business developer at $Solo and $Core. Mauricio has over 2,100 followers on Twitter. Follow Fabio on Twitter at Made by Fabio. He is the producer and marketing manager at RealSologenic. Fabio has over 500 followers on Twitter. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at RPUReloaded so you get my latest updates and retweets of things that I think are interesting in the crypto space. So guys, as of Wednesday, June 29th, the technical white paper is now available. The DevNet has been released along with documentation, and the Transaction Explorer is now live. Now here are some of the next milestones for Corium, estimated around August, right? WASM, smart contracts, and gas price calculation, core developer grants distribution, and bounty programs. I'm really excited for these WASM smart contracts because this new standard will allow the Corium ecosystem and community to grow at a rapid rate. Why do I say that? Because developers, it doesn't matter what programming language they like to code in, right? Will be able to compile their dApps into WASM and deploy onto Corium. Now you know Forbes called Corium an Ethereum killer, right? Yeah, that's right. With WASM smart contracts and 7,000 transactions per second, we're coming for Vitalik's next. I'm just playing. Nah, interoperability is key, and Ethereum holders will be able to bridge over to Corium using collateralized wrapping, right? But the whole time, we taking over. One blockchain at a time. Let's go. Now, Corium says the Corium DevNet is now live. Review the technical paper and observe the blockchain in action for the first time. Execute transactions and stress testing activities. Grant applications are open. Wave 1 is for implementing fundamental components for #DeFi. The link is at Corium.com. Now this is the Corium Transaction Explorer, your one-stop shop for everything core. We even have a price chart here. The current price of Corium at the time of recording this video is 29 cents. This website will also feature various core metrics such as market cap, inflation, APR, supply, community pool. Now these numbers are not available right now because we're on the DevNet, but once the mainnet launches, these metrics will be available to you. Now when I was visiting this website the other day though, it was showing the latest block, the average block time, which was 1.7 seconds. Real quick for Core to reach consensus. But there's one other thing that I want to show you. You remember when Bob Ross asked us if we wanted to see what the Corium addresses look like? You can see them down here. It looks like every core address starts with core. So it will be real easy to identify core wallets and addresses. The Corium website has also been recently upgraded, highlighting all of Corium's features. I'm talking DeFi, CBDCs, NFTs, tokenization, cross-border payments, stablecoins, the metaverse, trading, market makers. Man, let's run through this real quick. Oh, the Corium technical white paper is now available. You can download it at Corium.com. Ultra fast, scalable, interoperable, sustainable. A third generation blockchain built to serve as a core infrastructure for future decentralized applications. Build on the fastest layer 1 with the ability to process up to 7,000 transactions per second with a federated group of 16 rotating validators. Corium is the fastest blockchain in the world. Open source developers incentivization. Scale with no limits. Using the well-established Tendermint consensus engine and Cosmos SDK, Corium brings a low-latency proof-of-stake blockchain, more powerful, more efficient than proof-of-work. Shout out to Zengod, because everything that he said about Cosmos and Tendermint, he was right on the money, man. I'm going to have to go back and binge some of his old videos and load up on Adam, too. What does he say? IBC plus ILP is all I need to be free. Let's go. Meet Corium. Smart contracts. Applications can be written in many languages and compiled into the modern Turing complete WebAssembly before processing. And this will allow the ecosystem to expand rapidly. Developers, the best of the best, doesn't matter what programming language you like to code in, will be able to compile their dApps into WASM and deploy onto Corium. A multi-chain feature. With hundreds of blockchains currently being used, Corium deploys a bridge functionality to interoperate with various chains through collateralized wrapping. I can't wait to see, what things I will be able to do with my XRP once I'm able to bridge it over to Corium. That's going to be exciting. Open source developers incentivization. Build on the Tendermint Core BFT utilizing many of Cosmos-like modules. Corium is destined to scale. Developers are encouraged to build on Corium. You can apply for a grant at Corium.com. Community-powered bonded proof-of-stake consensus mechanism. Corium is the home of all the open source developers, token holders, validators, and members supporting the protocol. Voting events define the future life of the blockchain, and that's why it's important for you to participate. Are you participating? Let me know in the comments. Join the Corium dev community. Follow the latest updates, participate in hackathon events, and be loud across the Corium community channels. Join today. Corium was designed with the future in mind and destined to scale. Now on June 30th, Corium announced that the 6-core airdrop distribution for solo holders has begun. It will take a few days for the system to complete the transactions. Well, 2 days later, I received my Corium airdrop, got a fat bag, 845 core for the free. Also, on July 8th, Corium released the official report for the 7th core snapshot, which took place in June, and the airdrop ratio for solo holders. This is the Corium 7th airdrop ratio for solo holders official report from Medium.com. The Sologenic Development Foundation, SDF, has created the Corium blockchain for the success of the Sologenic ecosystem. Many capabilities of Corium have been designed to meet Sologenic's roadmap and future expansion. For example, tokenization of assets, ultimate cost efficiency of the transaction, and a native DEX with a synthetic order book. Furthermore, SDF has decided to offer the core airdrop exclusively to the Sologenic community and solo holders as the initial backers of the project. There are 13 snapshots and 12 distributions scheduled for this airdrop. According to the schedule announced, the 7th snapshot was completed at block number 72,559,165 on June 24, 2022 at 4 p.m. UTC time. What's the total number of solo holdings participating in the core airdrop? After our compliance team's full review, we're pleased to announce that there was no discrepancy, and the total number of solo holdings participating in the 7th core airdrop is 208,772,411 solo, giving us a final airdrop ratio of 0.03684542237377533 core for each solo that you held at the time of the 7th snapshot. Here is the formula that they use to calculate the airdrop ratio for the 7th snapshot. A total of 100 million core will be distributed to the solo holders within 2022 every month gradually. When and how will the core airdrop be distributed? Each month's airdrop will be distributed at the time of next month's snapshot at a random date and time to the solo holders. Since all solo holders on the decentralized wallets automatically have a trust line with the Sologenic gateway, either by creating the trust line or by obtaining solo through the DEX, they are not required to take any action to participate in the core airdrop. At the time of the initial core IOU's distribution on the XRPL, all participants must create a trust line with the Corium gateway to receive the core tokens deposits. Here is the schedule for snapshot and distribution of the core airdrop for the solo holders. After the most recent airdrop and snapshot that currently places us right here in the distribution schedule, the 6th Corium airdrop has been distributed and the 7th snapshot is now completed. Now snapshot 6, which was taken during the month of May, that was recently airdropped to us during the month of June. Well, distribution didn't begin until the end of June, right? But there was also a snapshot during the month of June. And this snapshot, snapshot 7, will be airdropped to us sometime during the month of July. But guys, we are 1 month away from the launch of the Corium mainnet. You see it? Now, once the mainnet launches in August, we're going to swap our core IOUs on the XRPL for tokens on the Corium mainnet. Have you been stacking Sologenic to receive the Corium airdrop, or are you buying core outright? If you're new to Corium, you still have 6 more airdrops that you can participate in. Are you participating? Let me know in the comments. Now, Corium says if you need help setting a trust line to receive core tokens, it being on the Solo DEX, Zoom, or XRP toolkit, check out this tutorial. Guys, I will leave the Sologenic gateway and Corium trust line information pinned in the comment section of this video. Also, you're going to need a hardware wallet to go with that trust line, so purchase a decent biometric hardware wallet today and pull your crypto off the exchanges. These bad boys go for $160, but if you use my referral link in the description of this video, I can get you $30 off, man. I got the plug. Hit me up. Pull your crypto off the exchanges. Now, there were many different topics discussed in Corium's Twitter space, but the elephant in the room seemed to be initial supply and inflation. Reza Bashash explains why an inflationary model at Corium Official. He says, Corium was initially designed to be deflationary, but later on, the engineering team voted for an inflationary model since the deflationary ecosystem lacks security. And that's not good because we want funds to be safe food at all times. With inflation, it is estimated that validators and delegators will lock approximately 80 to 90% of the whole supply. The more core staked, the more secure Corium becomes. This is known as a high total value locked. The inflation is said to be dynamic to ensure TVL remains around 80 to 90%. If it goes lower, inflation increases, and if it goes higher, it might even become deflationary. Other than the network security, with inflation, the fees will be multiple magnitudes lower. Network participants can stake/delegate their tokens not only to hedge against inflation, but earn more. That's what I'm talking about, man. Hashtag passive income all day. It's important to note that all the inflation/deflations are adjustable through governance, and the community can decide how the network behaves on chain. So guys, the more we participate, the more we stake, the higher the TVL, the more secure the network becomes, the smaller the circulating supply is, the price has to go up. And since Corium was designed with 18 decimals, we could have a small supply circulating with a very high value. You wouldn't need 18 decimal places if you didn't expect the price to go up. It has to go up. Let me know what you think in the comments. So that's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I now leave you with the replay of Corium's technical breakdown and the AMA with the team featuring Reza Bashash. Shout out to everybody that showed up and showed out in the Twitter space, man. It was packed. Mauricio was there. Fabio was there. Malad, Adolfo, Flair Community was there. Coin Girl was there. Zen God, Fiction Crypto was there. I even seen Bob Ross pop in for a couple of minutes. It was packed. And they talked about a lot of different things. Now, I haven't finished the Corium technical paper yet, so the Twitter space kind of gave me a head start on what to expect. I did just recently finish the Sologenic white paper though, and let me tell you, with Sologenic, we're talking tokenized stocks, commercial real estate, and commodities from over 30 global financial markets that can be traded 24/7, 365 on the Sologenic decentralized exchange. One example they give is Tesla stock, right? I've said too much. I'll just save it for another video. This is RPU, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Hello, everyone. We'll just be waiting a few minutes for everyone to join, and we'll start shortly. So today we have joining us our co-creator and CTO Reza Bashash, Adolfo Oliveira, and Milad Sahid E, which are team members of the Corium development team.
Hello guys, this is Adolfo. Very nice to meet you all. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Hello.
Hey Adolfo, how's it going?
Hey, man.
Milad, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. And welcome everybody. I am Milad Zahidi, and I am in the core development team.
Hi, core community. How are you?
I think we have everyone on board now. I'll let Reza get a head start on the AMA, maybe giving us a quick brief of the points that we're going to touch today. And yeah, take it away.
Thanks again, Fabio. So, hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Twitter space for Corium technical white paper. So, the purpose for today's space is basically go over some questions that were raised and some of the other questions that the community had. So, basically, since we released the light paper or the blueprint, we call it, a few months ago, there's been some changes and some improvements, and so we're happy to cover those today. And I think a lot of community members had questions about the inflation model and security, etc. So, would like to take this opportunity today to address those and perhaps answer some of the questions that community has, and maybe we can have people raise their hands and invite them to ask questions once we go over some of the points. What do you think, Fabio?
Absolutely. I think the inflationary model has been one of the most requested questions on Twitter. And I think we can start with that maybe. Give it 10, 20 minutes for just topics that we have already prepared, that we've gathered. And then we'll open up for questions from the community.
Sure, sounds great.
So
Right.
let's start with the change, the inflationary model. How did the team got around this idea in the first place?
Yeah, so basically, when I think we've done a lot of R&D, benchmarking, testing, all that stuff for a long time now. And so initially, because we think that incentivization is really good for a blockchain. And unlike other maybe blockchains, we actually do think that's the best for a lot of things, for engagement, for security, etc. So incentivization doesn't necessarily mean validators or network participants to get direct payments or coins by contributing, but also means incentivization in terms of low fees and other benefits, higher security, and so on. So, thinking of incentivization as a whole, we wanted to basically have everyone to kind of win when using Corium blockchain. So it's a win-win-win scenario for everyone, for validators, for the network, for community, and for the users, for the end users. So that's why we initially designed a rewards pool. So the idea was to put 10% of the total supply into the rewards pool, and so essentially have some incentives in terms of direct coin incentives to validators from this pool. And so from transactions that were gathered in each block, we would put back some back into the pool. So we ran a lot of simulations and a lot of tests. And so we were kind of uncertain about whether this model would work in the long term. So maybe in 5, 10, 20 years, you don't really know what's going to basically happen with the blockchain. If the activity is really high, then the amount of tokens that are put back into the rewards pool would increase a lot. And if the activity was down and low, the vice versa would happen. The pool would essentially dry out. And so this was the initial incentivization model specifically designed for validators. So over the course of past year, we have done, again, a lot of more research. And in the team, we have reached a consensus, an agreement, by voting to whether to change the whole model to an inflationary model. And there's a lot of benefits and good things about having an inflationary model. And I think I would like to ask Milad to also speak about why because Milad was one of the people who was strongly in favor of the inflationary model. So I think it's best for me to invite Milad to speak and share his ideas about why he thinks it's essential to have an inflationary model on a proof of stake blockchain.
Thanks, Reza. Well, as Reza mentioned, we did a lot of benchmarking in the team, and we managed to come up with a model which very accurately predicts the security and the transaction cost and the transaction per second, and also blockchain usage, and puts them all into a model and basically predicts how secure the blockchain is. So with that said, the model that we came up with predicts accurately. Actually, we put that model into the existing blockchains, and we realized that the model is very accurate in predicting the other blockchains. So we were confident that this is the case and this is true. And what happened is that the security of proof of stake is a factor of the staked tokens, and we want a lot of people to stake their tokens. We don't want to have a low total value locked, which is the total amount that the network participants have locked as a stake. So if and people will put their money as a stake only if they are incentivized to do so. So basically, if we don't introduce inflation, so we can incentivize network participants and validators by transaction fees. But if we keep the transaction fees low, that means that there's not enough incentivization, and that also means that people will not stake their money, which means low security for the network. To get around that, we decided to introduce inflation, and with inflation, at the end of each block, we mint some tokens and distribute them among the validators. So the validators are incentivized to put more tokens as a stake, which in turn increases the blockchain security. So basically, that was the main idea behind this, that in order to have a very secure proof of stake blockchain, we need to have a high total value locked, or in other words, total stake that is put in by validators and delegators. And to reach that, we either need to have high fees for transactions or introduce inflation. So the decision was that we shouldn't lock ourselves into a single decision. We should have the transaction fees decided by community. And if the community decides that they want to have low transaction fees, they can do that via voting. And if they decide that they want low transaction fees, then the inflation will go up. Basically, it's a balance. So if the community decides that they want to reduce transaction fees, it means that the inflation goes up. And if they decide that they want to have lower inflation or even zero inflation, they can vote on that as well via governance. And that means that transaction fees will go up. So basically, that's the decision that's made. So
to clarify that, even the current inflation model is decided by the community. So essentially, the network comes up with a specific inflation percentage. And that inflation percentage changes dynamically based on the network, TVL, or total value locked, as Milad mentioned. However, that is still configurable by community voting and proposals. So that's actually on-chain voting. So the community has the final say on whether this blockchain will be inflationary or deflationary. Now, by inflation, I just want to emphasize that I've seen a lot of comments from different people saying, "Oh, so the team can mint tokens, or that this blockchain is like the tokens can be minted on, at will, and if the team or if anybody wants." But that's not true. So the initial supply is minted at the Genesis block, and after that point on, everything is basically decided by the community and the governance system of the blockchain. So it's not like that the team or there is no one behind this blockchain. So we don't really call this a team behind it, and we don't own this blockchain. We are contributing to the code. We are asking the community to basically come forward and help with the development and all that stuff. But once the blockchain is mainnet, the Sologenic Development Foundation, which is essentially working on this project, is just a team that's working on the project. So one day, essentially, there could be another team that could be bigger than us with the number of developers or the resources and can contribute more. So that's the whole idea behind a decentralized blockchain. And if you use a proof of stake model like Corium, then the inflation model is necessary to keep the transaction fees low and keep the network secure, and yet have the network to be decided by the community via governance.
Thank you, Reza. I think that was a very good clarification and overall summary of what Milad contributed. I think Mauricio was raising his hand. He had a question directly for the team.
Hey guys, yeah, I just was wanting a bit of clarification and for the community, just because I've seen some comments on the more TVL that is staked and locked, also it lowers the inflation, right? So if we hit the threshold that we're looking for to have 70 to 80% of the supply staked, then therefore it would be less inflationary every time the more core is staked. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. So basically, the network, the blockchain adjusts itself to attract more people to stake. And so once it reaches that point, then it basically lowers the inflation to deter more stakes, because it doesn't really want like 100% of the whole supply to be staked. So that basically, that percentage changes everything from inflationary model to deflationary model. I mean, if you look at the security or the TVL, the more staked, that means the more community engagement. Every single update, every single decision needs to be decided by a larger community than if it was a deflationary model from the get-go. You would have like a smaller group of validators or a smaller group of stakers to vote for decisions. But now you have a larger community. And inflation is not always bad if you hedge yourself against it. So that means, well, there is inflation, right? But if you stake your tokens, you will not get affected by inflation at all. Not only that, you'll gain transaction fees. So staking is beneficial to the community by hedging them against inflation and getting rewarded from the transaction fees.
Absolutely. I think it makes sense now to move to an adjacent topic, which is validators. Since we're talking about staking, there was a few changes from the blueprint to the white paper and the concept of super validators. Should we dive deeper into that, Reza?
Sure, but in the meantime, do we have any question? Let's see if the community has any questions about the inflation model so we can completely wrap that section up and then move on to the validators.
Can I ask one more question, Reza? That I've been seeing on the
yeah,
on
Mauricio,
Twitter.
go ahead. Yeah.
Also, I saw a comment asking if you know how we will be proceeding with the 6 months of more Corium airdrop to solo holders, but after that we will be basically switching over to core airdrops to core holders. Is there a possibility to further the incentivization of staking and only give the core airdrops to stakers of the network?
Well, essentially, these are the initial supply that are being distributed. After that point on, the validators will get the newly minted tokens, which is coming through inflation, right? So I think there are two completely separate things, because the initial supply needs to be distributed amongst the community. And the way we're distributing it makes sure that a bunch of different communities can basically get the airdrops, and if they want, they can start their own validators, and once that happens, they'll get the incentivizations directly from the network.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Awesome. We do have a question from Coin Girl. You may.
Hello everybody. Hi Reza, thank you for this space. I have a question on inflation. You did the tweet saying that the estimation of total value locked is going to be about 80-90% of the whole supply, and I'm wondering how did you come up with this estimation, because normally I see that in different blockchains it is about from 40 to 80% of TVL staked. So, and only a few have 85%. So that's why I'm wondering about this 80-90%.
That's actually a great question. I think the 80 to 90% is the best case scenario. That means like you have a maximum security. We definitely want to reach that point, but comparing other blockchains, you can easily see blockchains reaching 80%. So 80% is not a very high number. Like, it's not the maximum that it can go up to, but if it goes above that, it's perfect. So maybe we can just say, like, I think once the mainnet goes up, you start seeing gradually the TVL go up. So it's not like from the first day you'll reach 80-90%. Well, once everything's there, once everything, like the network performs and continues, then that TVL goes up. And we really hope that it goes up as much as it's possible, because that ensures the security of the network.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much for responding.
Thank you, CoinGirl.
Thank you. We have a couple more questions. Just keep in mind the topic right now is the inflationary model, and then we'll move on to other ones. Guy, Stellar Guy, you have the mic.
Hey guys, thanks for the spaces once again. I have the question with the inflationary model that a token will come into the network to raise the security and balance out the system with the fees. Will the validators or the community have the possibility to vote for deflationary models, like you have them on Sologenic as well, with where like minting costs for NFTs are in place, so that in the end there might be even a balance that on one hand there will token come up to the network, but that they will get burned again. So actually the supply will stay the same, or maybe will even lower over the course of time.
That is a great question. Whether the foundation or the actors on the system burn tokens, well, is entirely a business decision of that entity. So if one day somebody decides that they want to, either Sologenic Development Foundation or anyone who has a stake decides to burn their tokens for the sake of the community, I mean, that's obviously something that will balance out the inflation that's being caused. That's, I think, your second question. Now, to answer your first question, whether community has a say to whether change inflationary model to deflationary model, the answer to that is absolutely yes. So basically every single thing on the blockchain is decided by the community. So the more TVL or the more coins staked, the more decentralized the community is. And so decisions made by this community means the majority of the participants want this thing. So if one day somebody proposes that they want to turn an inflationary model to a deflationary model, they're obviously seeing the trade-offs of converting an inflationary model to a deflationary model. Now, I think having an educated community about these things, it's not only about having the value of your coins increase over time by not doing anything. It's more about how you can get the best out of the, participation and incentivization. So if, for example, tomorrow somebody comes up proposing the inflationary model to deflationary, it's entirely up to the community to decide whether they want to vote for it or not. But if they look at the security, if they look at the transaction fees, and if they look at how they can hedge themselves against inflation and get more, I think they will probably vote no. But it's entirely up to them. And if they vote yes, that model will be changed. So now I think this decision is not only within the core team development, is more with the community. And now as we progress forward and as we move forward, I think it's up to the community to decide about whether they want to have higher transaction fees, a less secure network, and basically with deflation, they can vote for that.
Thanks, Reza. So we have one more request from Jerry McCall. Jerry, you may speak.
Question, if you don't mind, Reza. Thanks very much for clarification on the inflationary method. But will you guys have an easy to use portal where we can actually see the current circulating volume of core? So we know how much has been minted, how much has been burned, to get an accurate market cap of it at any given time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes. So basically the Explorer will have all the inflation, like daily inflation, all the proposals, the total supply and everything. So that portal is eventually going to evolve to be, more than just being an Explorer, and something that the community can use to submit proposals, to see the different metrics of the system. It's still like right now it is, but because we're on a test net and nothing nothing serious is really happening other than testing and developing, you don't really see that stuff. It's there. I think the numbers are there. It's probably showing as zeros or perhaps some incorrect information about the total supply, but that will change once we get closer to the testnet.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
But yeah, Jerry, this is essential. I mean, eventually, the network will have three types of participants: the delegators, the validators, and the regular end users. So delegators are those people who basically trust other validators. You don't have to trust, but we'll pick one other validator and we'll delegate their funds to them. And I think it's essential for them to see exactly what's happening with their funds and how much interest and commissions are they getting paid, all that stuff. So validators also need accurate tools to measure the performance of their validators and to see the metrics of how they're performing, how how competitive their commissions are, and things like that. So these will all be under the same umbrella of the Explorer Corium. And because it's an open blockchain, obviously anyone can build such tools, such wallets, such metric systems to provide such insights for anyone. And we like you guys probably know, we have the development grants, which is open for such things, right? So if anybody is interested to come up and develop such tools to provide insights, alerts, and whatever that helps the community, then it is highly encouraged to do so.
Yeah, and right now, if you go to explorer.corium.com, like Reza said, you can see the inflation percentage, the total supply, and of course the number of active validators and average block time as well.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is like a pure DevNet right now. It's like with the DevNet. So let me clarify this. It's a playground for the developers and who like people who are building. And I think within the next couple of weeks, we are actually going to release the smart contract system, so that you'll see a different range of developers come develop for Corium, different apps and so on. But you got to keep in mind that the DevNet is, it might be reset. Like we might reset the DevNet at will and just change things around because it's a purely development network.
Exactly. And with the WASM smart contract update, then developers will be able to start building. And in terms of the grants, just to remind everyone, the link is on Corium.com. You can apply via Typeform. And we've also added a new link on solgenic.org as well. So in both pages you can find it. We had one request that we missed is from TM5. You may ask a question now.
Hey, thanks. I hope this isn't a really uneducated question, but is there any scenario in an inflationary model like this that you would have or be beneficial to have a maximum supply?
I think honestly that, I mean, it's entirely again up to the community to submit proposals on chain to decide anything, max supply, inflation, deadline, and deflation, all that stuff. But if I think what maybe is your mind is like something like Bitcoin, that the inflationary model will change at some point, and then will be purely a deflationary model. Well, to answer that question, I think it will essentially reach an equilibrium where the community participants, like the network participants, and the network itself will reach a balance where they will settle on a specific inflation deflation trade-off. So it needs to be tested, it needs to be run, and maybe in the future, in 10, 15, 5, I don't know, in a few years from today, people will decide, you know what, this network is really used, let's vote on high transaction fees, and then let's just completely end inflation. Or it might be more beneficial for the whole network to have lower fees and keep the inflation. Like, imagine if the network is used for things like CBDCs and enterprises who might use this blockchain, then you're looking at thousands of transactions per second. And in order to keep up with this and to make the network operable in terms of like financially operable for governments, for entities who are using Corium, it makes sense for them to pay lower fees. So that means you'll have more transaction fees generated. So once the transaction fees go higher, then it means inflation can go lower. And then the incentivization level is still the same. So inflation will lower, validators will get incentivized, but mainly from transaction fees at that point in time. And everybody's happy. The governments who are probably using this blockchain for CBDCs or anything else are also happy because their network or their community are paying lower fees.
Thank you, Reza. I think we have another request, but after that, we'll move on to another topic, if that's okay.
Sure.
This one is from the Flare community.
Hi, Corium team. Thanks for the opportunity and hosting today. I do have a question about, I guess, proof of stake and the inflation mechanism as well. So, with proof of stake, the value of the network, whether that's in NFTs or issued assets, the security of that is defined by the total locked value, right? And basically, if we had this assumption that maybe there's 1 billion worth of assets held on Corium, and there's also 1 billion market cap of the Corium token, so it's fairly secured, right? In recent months, we've had a drop of maybe 60-70% across the full market as a whole. And if the total locked value decreases, that obviously jeopardizes the security of the network. Am I correct in thinking in the opposite way, that if the token was to depreciate in value, that the inflation would be really high to sort of bring this total locked value back up to a higher amount to secure the assets on the network? And if so, is there a cap on the inflation percentage?
Well, there is a cap on inflation percentage, and the inflation can't really change. Like the increments in inflation is also capped. So you will probably not see the inflation jump from, let's say, 5% to 10% overnight. That's not going to happen because there is a period. And I think we can probably provide some more information and insights about these specific numbers. Basically, in terms of the price, I think really the price doesn't change anything in terms of the TVL, because the total number of the total supply is the same. So if somebody sells their tokens, doesn't mean that their token is gone. Somebody else will buy it, and those who buy it will still stake it. So regardless of the price, whether it goes down or up, the TVL should really remain unchanged. Now, one other question that I think I can add here is I've seen people ask, what if the TVL goes high and there's not enough coins in circulation to, basically to cater or to use for fees across the network? Then in that scenario, there will be an equilibrium where people will basically either sell their coins for higher prices. That means the prices will go high because the supply essentially is low, because the majority of the tokens are locked and people are benefiting by locking their tokens. And that means the prices will go up. So you'll never have a scenario that you have inadequate or low amount of tokens in circulation to be used by the network, because there are 18 digits of decimals. So even if 99.999% of the whole total supply is locked in TVL, that small percentage can still be circulated and the price for that could go up. So that could be something tangible. I'm not sure if I answered your question, but if not, please.
Yeah, no, I think we got there. Thanks a lot for that, Reza.
No worries.
Thank you, Reza. I think we can now move on to our next topic. We can talk a bit about the validators types that we have introduced in the white paper, perhaps.
Sure. So in order to reach high transaction throughput on the chain, because there's always a dilemma, like the trilemma of decentralization, whether if it's too decentralized, that means you'll have a lower throughput. If it's not decentralized and not distributed, you'll have less security and less decentralization. So the idea about validators and super validators basically came when we were doing benchmarking and doing testing about the speeds and all that stuff. And we wanted to keep the validators to a number that can have a high throughput, like for the network to have a high throughput and still be secure. So we came up with the idea of having super validators, that these super validators are like public validators, but are nominated and voted by the community. So in that scenario, it will be much more difficult for a group of validators to collude and put all their stakes together to hijack such a network, because essentially you're dealing with two different groups of validators. Each group has a set number of seats in the consensus, and the final consensus is made by the total number of seats that these two groups are. And the incentivizations are different for these two groups. So the super validators are incentivized more, but there will be an equilibrium again where at points it might be more beneficial for validators to become public validators rather than super validators. So you might see one day validators changing seats from public to super validators and back to public validators, because it's all about an economical game theory, that how to play the game to get more and to benefit more from the system. So that's the essential general idea, and I'll have my team Milad or Adolfo to add more if I missed anything.
Yeah, as Reza mentioned, am I speaking?
Yes, Milad, we hear you.
Okay, good. Well, as Reza mentioned, the super validator idea is introduced to balance out the security versus the number of validators, because most other proof of stake algorithms, proof of stake blockchains out there, they have a high number of validators, because well, the thing is, in a trustless blockchain, you cannot really trust the validators. So they may misbehave and they may collude. So in order to keep the number of validators low, but still have the security guarantees, we decided that we have community voting. So a validator gets promoted. And once they get promoted and they have the trust of the community, they are less likely to misbehave, because if they misbehave, their social credit, they lose their social credit. And social credit is something that is really hard to get. So they work hard to get their social credit, and people trust them. They vote them, and they're less likely to misbehave. That way, we counteract the fact that we don't really need like hundreds or thousands of validators to have a very secure blockchain. So we can guarantee high number of transactions per second while keeping transaction fees low and the blockchain secure.
Thanks, Milad. Now I think we're ready to get questions in that regard.
For sure. Everyone, feel free to ask questions in regards to the super validators concept and overall the staking details in Corium. If there are no questions, Reza, I think it's pretty clear, to be honest. We can move on to another topic that was heavily requested, which are sidechains.
Well, I see one question. Lady K is requesting.
Oh yeah, I see it.
Let's take that, and then we'll move on to sidechains.
Sounds good. Lady K, you may speak.
Question, but I'm not very technical. So I did read the white paper, and it was talking about how when you bring coins on, they'll be burned and then minted. And so I'm just curious, like the coins being sold and whatnot within the system, how will that data affect like the data outside of the mainnet?
I'm not sure if I understand your question. Can you probably rephrase that?
Okay, so if you're bringing coins from other blockchains onto the mainnet, how will the data of those coins being sold or whatnot be sent?
Oh, I see. You probably speaking about the interoperability with other blockchains. When you basically send coins from other blockchains to Corium, how the coins are locked on the other blockchain and how they are minted on Corium. Is that correct?
Well, no, I understand that part. But if then they're sold within the mainnet or something, how will like that sell price, affect
So
the
they
whole?
won't be sold
They won't.
because
Okay.
if they are transported from a foreign blockchain to Corium, that means basically that like it doesn't really matter if you sell a coin, because at the end of the day somebody will buy it. So that won't increase or decrease the total supply of that coin. So when a coin leaves its host blockchain, it's essentially locked there. So you'll have like entities called relayers who who have wallets and take the basically coins in one blockchain, lock it, and then probably mint it on the other blockchain. So this is not just Corium specific, but this is how basically interoperability works. Then that means the coins the coins that are moved to the foreign blockchain are locked essentially in the host blockchain. And if you sell those coins, you can't sell them on the mainnet because they're locked. And if you sell them on the foreign blockchain, then they just change hands. So the total supply remains unchanged.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lady K.
Thank you.
Now, the sidechains topic.
Yes.
Okay. So I will start with a brief introduction about sidechains in Corium's terms, and then we'll have our team to put more thoughts, and then we'll take questions. So basically, a blockchain can scale vertically up to a specific point that is limited by the consensus protocol, whether it's a proof of stake or proof of work, and the validator service specification, like, you know, say Solana requires huge servers for validators to run and to keep high transaction throughput for the network. So there's like a limit for these aspects, that you cannot go above a certain point in reality. And you might, like, if you create the best blockchain, you're still limited by the limits, that you can only increase that perhaps by Moore's law, that once the hardware, the capacity and things get improved, then you can improve that vertically. So that brings us to the concept of sidechains, or in other words, scaling horizontally. In Ethereum words, that's called ZK rollups. And we have seen other chains trying to reach that, which is a very, very interesting topic for the whole blockchain concept and community. So sidechains enable a network to kind of distribute different operations, or perhaps same operations, across different networks that belong to the same kind of mother network. That this network is interoperable with itself, but different transactions go to a different chain. So that's essentially sidechains. So if in terms of Corium, if you have sidechains, you might just have like decentralized trading in one chain, smart contracts in another chain, token issuance in one chain, and then you can replicate that, have like 10 other chains that do smart contracts, 10 other chains that will do at the same time and in parallel different operations. So this is an extremely complex thing to achieve, because all these chains need to be synchronized sort of asynchronously, and be able to communicate with one another to make sure that you don't get double spends and things like that. So this model will basically improve transaction throughput across the system. So if you are able to reach, let's say, multiple chains, at least 2 chains that will interoperate and will basically process transactions in parallel, then that can scale to have hundreds of different chains to do different operations. And essentially, you will end up with a chain that can have unlimited transactions per second. Now, I want our team again to elaborate more on that. And I think, again, Milad is he's been doing more research on the side chains in our team. So let's have Milad to have a word on that as well.
Thanks, Reza, for the explanation. To add on top of that, well, as Reza said, it is not possible with the current computers that we have to scale above a certain point, because, as you know, the Moore's law is dead. We are not getting more processing power from a single process, but instead CPU manufacturers are trying to add more cores, which means parallel processing power. And that's basically what the sidechain does. You have one chain, which is the main chain, and you have side chains which run in parallel and add computational power and allow scalability. The problem with the side chains is the communication between different chains. And that's the problem that basically every other blockchain out there is trying to solve. And they come with different trade-offs, but none of them has been able to successfully solve it. Probably Polkadot is the main contender there. They put their main focus on that. But basically, all the research that is done in that regard is split into two sections: the zero knowledge rollups and optimistic rollups. So our research and development has pointed us to the fact that optimistic rollups are easier to implement, but they have less benefits than zero knowledge rollups. But zero knowledge rollups are much better at solving the problem, but they contain a much more difficult math. And basically the mathematics has not really caught up yet. So we will probably have working groups working on both approaches, both optimistic rollups and zero knowledge rollups. And so we will try to scale it in different ways.
Thanks, Milad. I really like the analogy of the CPU cores, that in order to increase processing, CPU manufacturers, or not CPU, perhaps computer manufacturers, are adding more CPUs as cores. All right, so we are open to take questions on that.
There's no questions at the moment. Would you like to touch on any other topics, Reza, specifically?
I think the main changes from the initial blueprint were the inflation and the concept of the super validators that we touched and discussed. But the main goal and the main idea about Corium and the blockchain use cases remain the same. And our goal is to basically create a blockchain that can be used by almost everyone or anyone to create their specific use cases. And so that brings us to the on-chain transactions, like the DEX and the token issuances and all that stuff that are already there and has been there since the inception of Corium. As we progress and as we move forward, more use cases open up. Like, until a couple of years ago, nobody had an idea about NFTs, and NFTs became a thing, and blockchain started developing NFT functionality, some native, some non-native, into their blockchains. And so this is the case again with Corium, because it's an open source project. As we move forward towards the future, then we'll try to keep up with the use cases that are used most, and if so, the community will try to develop on-chain solutions for them. And over time, these will be released onto the chain. So I think at this time, it makes sense to have the community ask questions about anything any questions they have, or anything they found in the white paper that is unclear for them.
Thank you, Reza. I think we don't have any requests at the moment, but anyone feel free to request the microphone and ask any questions in regards to what Reza just said. Do we have any other pending topics, Reza, perhaps that you think we should address during this call?
I don't have any open topics. Again, I think it's time for the community to open up and ask their questions. It's a great time because I've seen that some members say, the core team is not responding to some specific questions and all that stuff. Now is the time for any questions that is related to Corium to be asked.
Reza, could you elaborate a little bit on the built-in DEX that Corium has developed on the native chain?
Yes, of course. And I have I've seen two requested questions. So I'm going to answer your question first. And so basically, DEX is an important aspect of any trading is an important aspect of any market, and blockchain relies on cryptocurrency, because the whole economics work around it. So a native way of trading native coins and issued coins is essential for a blockchain, because if you resort to like smart contract developments or smart contract solutions for DEX, then you're kind of you have an undeterministic situation where you don't know how long will it take for a transaction to process, how much gas fees you need to pay, and so it's unreliable. So once you have an on-chain solution like the built-in DEX, then everybody will know how to interact with the chain, how to put orders, cancel orders, and they can basically decide and plan in advance. So they know how much fees they're going to be putting on their transactions that will get included in the blocks. So, for example, Binance Chain is only used for decentralized trading. Binance Smart Chain, on the other hand, is used for smart contracts. So it's important for traders to know exactly what sort of environment and what kind of transactions they can submit to the chain. And what if you have a chain that's specifically designed to process transactions for DEX, then you'll have a much faster processing for these type of transactions.
Thank you for the clear explanation.
Okay, now we can move on to our first request from Drew RI. Drew, you may speak.
Hello, thanks. Sorry if this has already been asked or answered, but are y'all currently working on your own wallet, or is that something that you're going to look towards the community to work on?
I think, well, the community has a responsibility for sure to participate and to interact with the ecosystem. So that's why we have the grants. It will be really beneficial for the whole community to have a specific wallet that you can do, for example, delegating. You can do you can issue tokens and different operations on the chain. Now, the question about whether we are going to provide that or we expect the community to do that, well, we do really expect the community to move to step forward and to provide such software, either for apps, for web apps, phones, plugins, perhaps like MetaMask plugins and things like that. But essentially, our team will provide one. And Sologenic is one. Sologenic is a different entity, of course, which is specialized in creating wallets and DEX interfaces and NFT marketplaces and things like that. And we know for the fact that Sologenic has the commitment to provide such features for Corium. But we do want the community to step forward again and create multiple different solutions for the community and the users.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. We have another question from Jerry. Jerry, you may speak.
So Drew pretty much asked the first part of my question, which was around the wallet. But I was going a little bit more specifically into, have you been chatting to the likes of Ledger and the hardware wallet providers about them providing support for the Corium token down the line?
Well, the Ledger devices or hardware wallets, basically, they're all open source projects. So essentially, again, the community can develop such features. Like for Sologenic, we did a partnership with another company, and so basically we created the Ledger extension to the XRP Ledger and essentially Solo. And we submitted a pull request under GitHub, and it got approved. So that's how basically Solo was included in the Ledger device. The same thing can apply for Corium, of course, that the community can write and provide these updates in these specific projects. Of course, if a project is hugely popular, then these companies will take the initiative and then develop it themselves. So it's either the development foundation, the Sologenic Development Foundation, or a core team, the community, or these wallet providers themselves. And I think once we get closer to the mainnet, then we'll have a better and clear picture of who is doing what. And so if, for example, no developer from the community has decided to, step forward and do that, then we'll probably provide some resources from the internal team to provide such updates to these wallets, because I think it's also essential for Ledger and other devices to be compatible with Corium. And having in mind that Corium uses some open source technologies like Tendermint and Cosmos SDK, it makes it much simpler for developers to come and extend existing solutions, or perhaps fork existing solutions and create a specific one for Corium. Again, that's what the grants for. We already have, I think, a lot of proposals and applications sent to us by the community to develop many things. And the Wave 1 is specifically designed for wallets and other DeFi applications. So again, please check the Wave 1 of the Corium grants.
Thanks. Now, I have a second unrelated question, if you don't mind, which is around other tokens. So say, for example, an existing token on an alternative blockchain decides when mainnet goes live, or a month or two after mainnet goes live, that we want to move our token across to the Corium blockchain. Is that something that you guys are going to support and have a method for doing that?
There are two ways of doing that. One is to directly issue those tokens on Corium, which will give the token issuer a lot of benefits. So coming from the our background, personally, my background with Sologenic was developing on the XRP ledger. And so we found a lot of interesting things on the XRP ledger around token issuances and sort of say whitelisting or trust lines. And for Corium, we'll have all those features. So you can customize the token on how that token will basically behave on the blockchain. And whether it's a regulated token, unregulated, it's a crypto, whatever it is, you can define using a very simple interface and issue the tokens. So that's one way of minting the token on chain. Another way, which was discussed earlier, was to use the interoperability ecosystem on the Corium chain. So basically, because we're using the open source project Tendermint, it provides a thing called IBC protocol. Now, IBC is already compatible with a lot of different blockchains, so that you can use IBC protocol to bring other tokens into Corium. And essentially, like all Cosmos-based blockchains will somehow use the IBC protocol, and they are mainly compatible. So from the get-go, you'll have Corium interoperable with a bunch of different blockchains that can, freely move assets between one another. But that's entirely possible. So that's not something the core team will support. So it's not like somebody reach out to Corium and say, hey, we want to convert our tokens from this blockchain to your blockchain. So we'll provide all the tools necessary for companies and projects to bring over their tokens or to mint their tokens on Corium.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for participating. I think we have 3 more requests, actually. Just to keep in mind the time, we should have time for 4 more, Reza. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay for me.
Okay, let's go with consumer to blockchain first. C2B, you may speak.
Thank you. Hi. I just had a question about the smart contract capability. Are they EVM compatible smart contracts, or are they written in Rust for the WebAssembly?
Great question. I think I have the right person to answer that. Adolfo, you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. We are going to use WASM for smart contracts, which we believe that it's an upgrade from the EVM approach, since it's almost machine code, it's bytecode, so it's really performant to execute those contracts, and also the weight of the produced contracts is really small, and you can create contracts in different language as long as they can create a WASM compilation. So that's going to be the approach, and we are going to use Cosm WASM, which is an open source project which was pioneer on doing WASM contracts on the Cosmos ecosystem. And we are advanced on that part. We are aiming to release that by the end of August. We already integrated the WASM module on Corium, and this week we are going to be working on some integration testing. So things are looking very promising on that regard. And yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Thanks, Adolfo.
Thank you.
All right, we have our last request from Stellar G. You may speak now. Okay, if Guy, if you no longer have a question, I
Oh,
think.
I'm sorry.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I didn't see that I was up. I have a question regarding the bridging. Do you already, or are you in contact with Stellar, or is this a network that you are not in talks with as of yet?
Well, I'm not really sure if we are almost in talks with every other blockchain. It's but that's something I guess Mauricio or his team can have a better answer on.
Mauricio?
One second. I'm just going to invite him to speak.
So
Hey,
basically, the question behind that is if the SDF, the Stellar Development Foundation, isn't in contact with you, would you be up for talks with projects built on Stellar to build bridges to Corium?
Hey Jay, yeah, I can answer your question. Stellar actually reached out to us last week, and we are in touch with them. We have a scheduled meeting with them to discuss partnerships, and not just for Corium, but also for Sologenic. And yes, there have been projects building on Stellar that have requested to schedule meetings and potentially bridge over as well. We're gonna make interoperability between the Ripple blockchain, XRP, and Stellar quite easy. So yes, these projects are welcome to come on board on Corium, and we are in touch with Stellar.
Thank you.
Yeah, and in that sense, we are going to be in touch with a lot of projects that are already building on our ecosystem to also build on Corium and incentivize them as well. Just a reminder that we do have a developers section on our webpage that includes a Corium toolkit, which has some very intuitive guides and overall how to get started and on the blockchain, as well as the link to the development grants and Explorer on the same section. Fair. Well, I think that's all the questions we had for today. Reza, do you have any final words for the community?
I just want to thank the community for their support, and it's just really exciting to work on Corium along with our team. And like I tweeted a couple of days ago, markets may be down and people might not be really on their best moods, but we are working really around the clock to deliver things. So the Corium team is super busy and excited to be working on the core, and we do really want to ask the community to see if they have interest to either join forces, develop for the Corium blockchain, or if they're developers with experience, they can join our core team. And but thank you everyone again. So if any other questions come up, please address them on our Twitter accounts or Telegram channels, and we'll try our best to get them.
Absolutely. We'll probably have another AMA perhaps in a month, or when the Wasm smart contract happens in August. I think that will be a good time to make another one, Reza. I don't know if you're up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once the WASM is there, then you'll see a lot of use cases on the DevNet, and a lot of projects are building on DevNet, which is very exciting for us.
Perfect.
And I think we can have one either, like, it might be better to have two AMAs, not AMAs. I think we really need to change AMA style to a community technical
Q&A.
discussions, Q&A. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't really like the word AMA.
Yeah, because it's very broad. Ask me anything. I think Q&A below one specific topic works better.
Yeah, it should actually be AUA, like ask us anything, rather than ask me anything thing, right?
Yeah, let's make that popular now, AUA.
Yeah.
In any case, the grant program has a deadline July 1st for the first wave. Like Reza was saying, it's focused on wallets and DeFi protocols, as well as PR requests for the support of Core or Corium. And yeah, we'll see you on the next one, I guess. Thank you, Adolfo. Thank you, Milad, for joining as well. Thank you, Mauricio. And everyone stay safe.
Thanks, everyone.
Just wanted to say one last thing. Just thank the community for sticking by us. We've been growing a lot and in numbers and hashtags, Solo Nation, and we're really growing. And we're really thankful for everybody spreading the word. This recording we'll leave this AMA as a recording, so make sure to share it with people so they're informed about Corium. And thanks everyone for joining, and we appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Mauricio.